Hello, everyone. My name is Amelie, and I'm here to offer an energy forecast for the lunar cycle in January 2019. This is a big year, and we really started off with a punch with the solar eclipse, January 5th, which is a new moon, and followed by a lunar eclipse on January 21st. So, this is the first of three sets of eclipse cycles throughout 2019. And the placement of this new moon solar eclipse on January 5th, just a few days after the globe has celebrated the Gregorian New Year, we see the sun and the moon come into conjunction right in between Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. And so to me, this really frames a lot because in 2019, we're going to see Saturn and Pluto closing the gap in Capricorn and coming into even more of a pressurized container of the deeper alchemy that's occurring, of restructuring the societal foundations, all the Capricorn themes that have been up for us since 2008 when Pluto came in and the economy crashed in the US, and then Saturn's entrance into Capricorn in December 2017. We're going to just keep deepening with the work, the reality checks, the karmic retributions, and just what's here for us to be transforming inside of the archetype of Capricorn. So, setting off the new year with a solar eclipse right nested between these two planets definitely says a lot. And what it says to me is that our work is cut out for us, but there's very clear celestial instructions to help us to navigate this. So, first of all, just to continue framing this Saturn in Capricorn, getting within 3 degrees the spring of 2019, to have their first crossing actually January of 2020. But still, the pressurization of this deep work finds its place inside of us. And so we get to take personal responsibility and ask the difficult questions of how do I play a role in all of this? How does my dollar and my buying power, cast votes for the economy? How do what's my position inside of society as a white, cisgendered female? And just going through all of the layers of where I have power over and oppressive archetypes inside of my being that keep parts of myself oppressed, limited, quiet. Mm. This is the inner alchemy. Alchemy is such a big keyword right now. But let's actually touch on the celestial instructions. So, what I find very powerful about this solar eclipse new moon is that it also coincides with a grand water trine involving the North Node in Cancer. So, we saw that the North Node was traveling through Leo since the spring of 2017 until November 2018. And so, with the North Node moving into Cancer and the South Node moving into Capricorn, uh, giving us direct access to the traumas, the entrenchment into these shadow patterns. It's as if we're being given the remedy, the antidote of Cancer, calling us as a collective into deeper healing, into the opportunity to release traumas. Because in the end, the way I see it is that the world is traumatized. It's like a baby being traumatized, and each of us have our own traumas. And so, North Node in Cancer and this movement towards the emotional, going into our past, having connection with a more intuitive, maternal, feminine aspect of ourselves, that this is part of the healing that's underway. And what's powerful about this grand trine is it's forming its trine with Chiron in Pisces and Venus in the final degrees of Scorpio. So here's what's really powerful, interesting about this, okay? So Chiron and the North Node are forming a trine for about 3.5 months, from the end of October 2018 into the mid February in 2019. These two are going to be tracking with each other as Chiron's going to be retrograding back into the final degrees of Pisces to kind of resolve its 7-year cycle, putting us, first of all, activating the wounded healer into our contract as a collective to heal, to move forward, to unhook from corruption and power structures, and to actually become connected to our own source and our healing that's inside. Chiron and Pisces is going to open us again into direct contact with the collective and the suffering of humanity. So it gives us some extra, like, mystical keys to tune into just the fact that we're all connected, we're all one, and to feel the pain, to open up the wound of humanity and put us in contact with us with that pain. But then in this harmonious connection with the North Node in Cancer, saying, yes, we can heal these wounds. And with the trine to Venus in the final degrees of Scorpio, to me, I'm just seeing that our personal relationships, this is where the healing often happens. And there's a renewal, there's a possibility for deeper alchemy. And of course, I'm focusing on like what's possible. I love to say, here's the here's what the stars are like opening up this divine appointment with our life coach that's saying, hey, here's the work, and if you choose to say yes to this, there's so much potential healing. Now, of course, you can say no to that appointment and you don't have to show up, but it just compounds the pain inside. And so, tools, keys, relational healing. Do you have therapists to work with? Do you have emotional practices? The presence process is an incredible tool. The Venus sequence with the gene keys. There's so many ways that we can utilize our relationships and the sort of dynamics that happen inside of when two conditioned people come together and trigger each other's pain. That's where, when we can sit with that, feel the feels, track the pain body, be present and unwind these things, and alchemy can occur for the collective, because it all starts here. So I know that I may be going over time, but what I want to say here is this grand trine is not alone. The previous two new moon cycles have been marked by a grand water trine with North Node Cancer, Chiron in Pisces, and uh, a different planet each time tracking the final degrees of Scorpio. So there's something about the Scorpio archetype here that's really calling our attention. Jupiter was traveling through Scorpio, pulling us into a deep alchemy with our inner emotional, psycho-emotional resources, sexuality, power, all through late 2017 into the fall of 2018. And so, in fact, the first time, I'm going to share my screen here so that you can see this, because it's pretty phenomenal. Um, the first one of these grand trines here is November 7th, 2018. We had Jupiter at 29 degrees, literally one day before it left Scorpio for 12 years. It was sitting at that completion, that karmic completion degree, the anaretic degree of 29 degrees Scorpio, offering this, point of alchemy, changing our perspectives, opening up and expanding our capacities to truly face the depths of our unconscious and the taboo and the hidden aspects of ourselves, and bring it and pull it into the spin of this healing, this grand water trend. And so the next new moon is then December 7th, and we see that this is Mercury in the final degrees of Scorpio, having just gone direct after a Mercury retrograde throughout Sagittarius and then the late degrees of Scorpio. So here, this is another super potent moment of a new moon aligning to this grand water trine uh, with Mercury having just gone direct, giving us whatever unconscious messages we may need to, that we may have missed during Jupiter and Scorpio, coming in as the messenger to open up into some kind of new information around how can we best be in contact with our shadow and put it into as fuel, turn it into fuel for this healing. So then again, I'll show the chart here for January 5th, the solar eclipse, with this new moon nested right between Pluto and Saturn, and here the grand trine being completed by Venus. And so let me come back to this and just come into completion. That it comes back to Venus. It comes back to our hearts, our capacity to love ourselves, to value ourselves, and then to open up into connection and healthy relationships with those around us. And I just find this to be a beautiful setup for the deep work that's ahead of us. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll go deeper another time.